My name is Michael Carroll. I'm on the organizing committee of this conference. I was very fortunate to be invited on it. My background is I'm a Buddhist teacher in the Kagyu Nyingma School of Tibetan Buddhism, and I've written a few books, most recently The Fearless at Work, which is about the application of mindfulness awareness in organizational settings. Well, you know, I've been trained in a Buddhist tradition probably, I guess, almost 40 years. And I, at an early age, was in situations where I naturally combined my practice with work. And over the years, the way I did that was make all kinds of mistakes, lots of errors, and then noticing the error and sort of trying to put the error together with a bigger view. So after making, you know, literally hundreds and hundreds of mistakes over a career, my career was I worked on Wall Street and I held pretty senior jobs with companies like Simon & Schuster and the Walt Disney Company. And then at some point, things began to click about how to be skillful in the workplace by using these contemplative disciplines of, you know, for example, not knowing. Normally at work, you want to know, right? Like you're supposed to know. Like, I got to be an expert. Well, that actually gets in your way. Not knowing is actually far more helpful because now you're genuinely curious about a problem or a situation. That not knowing quality comes out of the practice quite naturally. So principles like that began to sort of go, oh, this is more fun this way. But that took a long time for me to learn those things. I think the primary impact is that I myself personally can see the vastness and sacredness of being alive. That is an immediate, unmistakable experience. And being able to realize that is a great honor. And, you know, how that unfolds is you just try to be helpful as much as you can. Well, you know, just loving, like I have a wife and I have a son. I haven't been the best dad, I don't think. I wish I could have done better. I wish I knew what I knew now, then, et cetera, you know. But makes yourself aware of that. You know, you're aware of like, God, I could have done that better, or I don't take myself as seriously, which for a big giant Irish guy is a good thing. I've always been a kind person. You know, I don't even like hurting bugs, but the kindness now is much larger in terms of just the sadness. You know, just the sadness of being is very big. Well, you know, I have a company that deploys coaches, right, executive coaches. And we work at pretty sophisticated levels with physicians and scientists and CEOs and people who run important, you know, companies and organizations and banks and stuff. And, you know, being able to engage on their terms the demands that they have to work with, which are quite powerful. And then bring to it a sense of sanity and gentleness and formidable presence and clarity. It's actually quite demanding, but I have to say it's a lot of fun because you're in dialogue with intelligent people who really care about their businesses and their vision of where they want to go, and they want to learn, and they begin to understand these principles actually work. So that's a lot of fun. Working in business settings with these principles, and I'm quite honored that I get to do that. In terms of my sort of affiliative community, you know, I'm part of a Buddhist community in a neighborhood, and I have cats. I have 2 cats. I really like my cats. I like birds. Birds live on my property, so I say hi to them in the morning. Well, I'm working. The one that just comes to mind is a physician who runs a global team around a cancer drug. This drug has already been adopted and improved in various countries, so it's not like in final phases or anything. But you have to, you constantly have to maintain clinical trials on these kinds of things. It's somewhat complex because once you apply it to the thyroid, for example, then you might move it over to other soft tissue things. And so I'm not a scientist, so I don't know. But there's just a lot of clinical work, a lot of regulatory work, a lot of management issues, let alone the commercial aspects of maintaining a global brand of a drug like that. The issue, what's happened, and it's happened fairly rapidly in pharmaceuticals, is the teams that actually manage these molecules are very complex, and they're dispersed. So you may have a study being done down in Argentina, you may have a regulatory issue in China, you may have a new rollout of the brand in Europe, the U.S. is now in an alliance with another company, and it's a very complex set of networked relationships that are very fluid. And typically physicians aren't trained in how to manage things to begin with, let alone probably some of the most complex organizations that are unfolding right now are these scientific teams. So I'm working with this one physician who can manage certain aspects of it, but outside of that, it really feels very hesitant and perceives himself as incapable, when in fact he's fully capable. And it's just a matter of being able to take certain steps, gain the confidence, don't trajectory your own sense of weakness to give people the wrong impression that you can't handle it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be the kind of setting that the use of mindfulness, just sort of establishing confidence in your own presence, really can make a big difference. I have been trained in the Kagyu Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism. My main teacher was Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, but I had Dujam Rinpoche was also my teacher, and I've had studied with other lamas like Tralik Rinpoche and Khenpo Kato Rinpoche, and there's others. They've been all very kind to me. And I'm also trained in the Shambhala warrior traditions. So how does that what does that have to do with this situation? It's a very interesting thing in Buddhism, and I think spirituality overall, but particularly in the style of Buddhism that I was trained in, is that we come to spirituality often from the view of trying to solve life. You know, this is a bummer. It feels like a bummer a lot. Wouldn't you guys agree? Yeah, right? So we go, how do we solve this thing? And we begin to think that the spiritual disciplines or beliefs or moral structures somehow will relieve us of this experience, or somehow, I don't know, make it better. But I guess you might notice that doesn't happen all the time. And the interesting thing about Buddhism is it kind of reframes it, and sort of, at least it helped me understand that you can't solve life. You don't even want to solve life. What you want to do is sort of recognize that it's sacred. Not morally, like, you know, hey, wow, man, let's think that it's sacred. Not thinking, but actually recognizing that the whole situation is sacred. And then when you do that, your ordinary life becomes the spiritual path, rather than going into a monastery. Not that that's bad, or going on retreats, which I do, but how you live your life, how you tie your shoes, how you say hi to your neighbor, how you open and close your car door, how you go to work, how you go to class. Those are all sacred acts, for real. Not just like, why don't we try that? No, for real. And when you get that, it's like, changes things. I don't think so. I think it's kind of obvious, right? You know, so it is mainstreaming, and that's good news. There's always caution, however, and there's a very subtle aspect of the human mind where the confused mind tends to hijack just about anything to give itself the false impression that it's going to be okay. Has everyone noticed that it's not going to be okay? In other words, you can't make this work out. It's not going to work. Our parents are going to die, or it is, being alive is very formidable. It's tough. And the confused mind wants to sort of hijack things to give itself the impression that maybe we can get through this. Watch a little more TV, smoke an extra cigarette, I can get through this. And it gives it the impression that it's coping, but it might be hiding, right? So in any case, the point of this mainstreaming of meditative disciplines is there's a slight promise in it. You know, like if you meditate, your immune system will get better. You'll become more emotionally intelligent. You'll actually, the front part of your brain will light up. All these good things. That promise is tricky because this is not about becoming a better version of you. This is about recognizing who you are. We're not trying to get anywhere. We're trying to actually acknowledge where we are. And that, while may sound to be a linguistic gymnastic, it's actually really important in terms of how these disciplines are brought into the mainstream. It's a matter of recognizing our basic decency and wakefulness rather than becoming someone else, someone who's more wakeful, someone who's more compassionate, someone who's more kind. It's really recognizing that our nature is kind. That's one of my concerns as it mainstreams. I'll be bold. I don't know. Maybe if I get on a film with this being said, people might go, maybe I'll regret this. But I'm a firm believer in this. I can't have confidence. This is my opinion. But about 300 years from now, we'll look back and we'll be able to look at these conversations and say, this is how America became a Buddhist country. This is how it happened in China. This is how it happened in Japan. This is how it happened throughout Southeast Asia. Began with medicine, philosophy, education. And that's what's happening. And more and more and more. And, it's not meant to threaten people like Christianity's bad. In fact, I hope Christianity stays around. It's a very compassionate and beautiful religion. But this approach to culture, based upon profound appreciation of one another, is going to be the future of this country. Well, I was talking to Rinpoche earlier, and he was saying there's really we really need to look at two strains. There's one, the popularization of the disciplines, where we make them accessible to people and we learn how to do them together in various settings. And then there's really the precision of the traditions. The subtleties of these practices are very powerful. Why would we put our hands like this versus this? In the West, we're like, well, it's different. No. So key subtle issues that one would not be able to understand unless you went and studied at a level of precision with experienced teachers who have the lineages to hand them down. So we need to preserve those lineages, both the scholastic, the practice lineages, even the monastic. We have Rick Bowles here, who's a Zen practitioner with the Zen Mountain order. I mean, that's a seriously conservative Zen tradition, preserving all of the original disciplines. So we need to have both. We need to popularize and mainstream, and we need to anchor it with real precise traditions that maintain the integrity of where these lineages have come from. I think what we're doing, we need sustainable institutions, right? So you have Naropa University here. You have out of this conference, Mark McNamee, your provost, a good guy. I've only had a few conversations with him, but a guy who gets this. If you have people at policy levels like that who are willing to create and help resource sustainable institutions that 15 years from now are being able to invite more and more of the young men and women in to learn these things and see how they apply. That's really, I think, what's needed at this point in the evolution of these practices. We do need to start institutionalizing more. You know, for example, the Linda Lantieri is here, right? She's a very smart woman, you know, really good at what she does. One of the things she's looking at, there's also a gentleman here by the name of Mallory. Walter Mallory, right? Well, these are two educators who are looking at, well, how do you help principals, superintendents, school leadership begin to understand how to use these disciplines in the way that they inspire schools? Pretty cool. Well, maybe we should institutionalize that a little bit with a curriculum, with an in-service program that is sponsored by Virginia Tech and Radford for superintendents and principals on how to be mindful leaders, and establish it as a kind of even a CEU, so that becomes an institution. The Mindful Leader program that Radford, Virginia Tech has, that kind of thing. It doesn't necessarily need bricks and mortar. It needs, good design, intellectual firepower, and commitment is what I'm thinking about.
So basically taking it from leadership and kind of having it trickle down to the younger generation?
Yeah, I think at this point, a lot of young people, I was just in New York City and I went to a film on meditation. I by accident heard about it. And I was like, the oldest guy there probably. And there must have been 300 young people in New York just excited about meditation, hanging, watching a film. It's organic. It's growing. You guys are going to do it. I mean, that's going to happen. It's happening. I mean, it's not even a problem. I mean, it's just happening. It's self-organizing. We're at that point of scale where the practices of yoga, meditation, various kinds of things are just happening. It's no problem. What we need now is being able to establish sustainable institutions where it can be made into policy, train leaders, brought into classrooms, and that's really where I think we are in the evolution of it now, mainstreaming. I think the only thing that I would want to highlight is that this practice of mindfulness awareness is about training the attention, and it's also about discovering one's presence right here. Not rehearsing it, but being here. And that's good stuff. But ultimately what it's about is discovering a quality of being human that is vast and profound. And we don't have to talk about it too much or make a big deal about it, but it shouldn't get sort of lost in the wash, so to speak. It's about discovering an ultimate state of health and well-being that is very powerful and very joyful, and that's important. And we shouldn't forget that.